Plantation 5, outskirts of the Geknosian Empire on Zephyr 8. H-989's hoe hacked into the freshly plowed earth, tilling the soil into neat rows as slave drivers cracked their whips at his back. The drivers had seemed restless as of late, more irritable than ever. The young man of 25 years had been hearing rumors lately, ones he dared to believe. The rumors stated that there was a slave who was raising hell in the capital city. They said it was a man who blurred the lines between reality and myth. A man in pitch-black armor with a sword ablaze with pale flames that sliced through armor like a knife through hot fat. A man with more scars than skin. The slave who'd spread the rumor had come from Golgotha on a hover transport bearing the imperial crest. It only gave credence to his words when he was hung from the town gates. His desiccated corpse still swung from the archway. Thumma. He looked up, his host still planted in the ground. He could have sworn he'd heard something coming from the wastelands, but beyond the line of scrub trees he saw nothing, and none of his fellow slaves had seemed to notice it. He raised his hoe again and brought it down. Thumma. The ground shook a little bit, and this time, he wasn't the only one to look up, as dozens of curious eyes turned to the scrub tree forest not far beyond the fields. The tall, thin trees shook as yet another tremor rocked the earth. Thoom! The slave drivers cracked their whips, shouting for the humans to continue working as they drew their sidearms and rushed towards the end of the field. Thoom! Crash! The tree line was shoved away, and H-989's heart began to palpitate as he saw what had caused it. 12 towering machines stepped over the fallen trees, 6 times his height. The machines had long arms. Some had an arm that terminated in massive renditions of farming equipment, from plow blades to articulated chainsaws, whose ominous hum could be heard from where he stood. The ones without implements, however, scared him more. Round, ball-like bodies held aloft by massive plantigrade legs, with gargantuan metal feet that crushed anything in their path. Their long, scrap metal-reinforced arms ending in four-fingered hands that could pick him up like a rat and crush him just as easily. The machines stopped as the slave drivers sprinted up to them, their shouts audible across the field as the one in charge pointed his laser pistol at the machine in front of him. Halt right there, machine! You will answer for this disruption this instant! The machine's glowing red, cyclopean eye focused on the slave drivers. This machine was different than the rest. Its plow blade scarred and divoted like battleship armor. Welded metal covering its slightly rusted main body around the eye. The machine remained silent, staring at the slave drivers without expression. The slave drivers took offense to this, and one fired a blaster bolt over the machine's shoulder. The machine's eye narrowed to a pinprick, and the next thing H-989 knew, the slave driver was flying over his head, purple blood pouring from the broken body before it landed in a heap against the town's wall. The machine slowly lowered its foot to the ground after the almighty kick. H-989 had never seen a Geknosian go pale before, but he bore witness to it as the machine focused on the other slave drivers. A deep, mechanical voice blared from the machine. We will obey none but those who created us. The slave drivers turned and ran, vainly trying to sprint away, but the massive machine knelt, revealing a massive metal container on its back. Silvery bodies leapt from the container, view-screen faces displaying simple red frowny faces as they sprinted across the field, nimbly dodging the gawking slaves. The silver men caught the slave drivers, and there was no hesitation from them as they punched their slim metal arms through the slave drivers' backs. H-989 wasn't sure if he should be horrified or elated, as their faces switched to friendly blue smiles. He felt a soft tap on his shoulder and turned, flinching a bit as one of the silver men covered in children's crayon drawings blankly smiled at him before speaking. Hello, my name is C47L, Automated Medical Assistant. You are being rescued. Please do not resist. The silver man's voice was mechanical and cheery, which threw H-989 for a loop as it knelt down and grabbed the locks on his shackles. With a sharp squeeze, the locks shattered, and his shackles fell away, raw ankles stinging from the air. The silver man straightened, and H-989 could see dozens, if not hundreds more streaming from the scrub forest behind the hulking machines. "What is your name?" the Silver Man asked. H989 looked at it confusedly. I don't have one. My number is H989, though, if that helps." The Silver Man paused for a moment, screen flickering. "Generating name. Hello, Halcyon Burden, and welcome to the Lost Legion. These machines will uphold the Master Protocol." Halcyon blinked a few times as the name seemed to click into place in his head. Before he could respond, the machine spoke again. "Sir Halcyon, would you happen to know where we can find this scarred swordsman?" His eyes widened. The rumors must have been true. He slowly nodded. "I heard he was in the capital city, Golgotha." The machine's screen flickered again for a moment, and its smiling face turned green. "Thank you for your help, Halcyon. We shall continue there after we're done here." The rain pelted down, icy and cold over Golgotha, the streets empty and largely unlit this late at night. A figure wearing a simple dark cloak passed beneath the yellow glow of a lone street lamp. Lightning flashed and thunder crashed as the street's lamp bulb burst. The flash of lightning illuminated the figure's face for a moment, revealing scars aplenty and dark, emerald-green eyes. Further up the road, a few Geknosion working class stumbled from a well-lit bar, giggling drunkenly as they leaned into each other. The figure paused, obscured by darkness as a hidden hand cautiously gripped the handle of a sword beneath the cloak. Luckily for the Geknosions, they stumbled away in the opposite direction. Drake let out the breath he'd been holding. He had his targets for the night. He didn't want to pile unnecessary corpses onto the mountain he'd already stood upon. Drake continued walking, slowing to a stop as he lifted his head to read the bar's sign. "The Conqueror's Chalice." Scoffing quietly at the pretentious name, Drake pushed the door in. The lively occupants seemed not to notice the human who'd stepped in from the rain. Drake kept his cloak's hood up and his head down to avoid recognition as he took an empty seat at the bar. He quietly set the small, thumb-sized device that Martha had called a credit stick on the counter and waited for the bartender to notice. It didn't take long for the bartender to plod over, not even looking at Drake as the old, graying Geknosion scrubbed a stained glass clean of some oily drink remnants. "What can I get ya?" Drake didn't look up, one hand still beneath his cloak on the handle of a spare MR-760 he'd taken from the armory, and tucked into his belt as he spoke. "Whiskey. Just give me a bottle and a glass." The bartender grunted, picked up the credit stick and plugged it in underneath the counter, before handing it back and setting a dusty bottle of amber liquid and a glass in front of him. The bartender didn't stay to chat as a Geknosion in off-white armor with a purple undersuit drunkenly beckoned them over. Drake picked up the bottle, flicking the cork out with his thumb before pouring himself a tall glass of whiskey. Glancing around, he countered the mercenaries that occupied the bar. There was one a few seats down from him at the bar, chatting up a few working-class female Geknosions with clearly embellished tales of bravery. There were another 4 at a table in the back corner, playing a card game that they bet little plastic chips on, while sipping tankards of foamy beer. They laughed and jeered at each other as the plastic chips changed clawed hands time and again. There were another 2 at the table directly behind him, passed out and slumped over the hardwood as their still half-full tankards lay slack in their grip. Double-checking that he wasn't missing anyone, he picked up his glass and drained it, feeling the alcohol's warm burn settle in his stomach. He poured another, letting this one mellow as he drew his MR-760 from his belt. The sound of the hammer being pulled back was heard by few, save the bartender, as Drake pointed the revolver at the ceiling and pulled the trigger. The smell of rapidly decomposed high explosives filled the air as the bar went completely still and silent. Ears ringing, Drake calmly took a sip of his whiskey, letting the ringing subside before he spoke, voice level and clear. "If you aren't a mercenary, you're free to leave." There was the scrape and squeak of wood on wood as most of the bar got up and left. A wise choice. The old bartender didn't move a muscle, as he had to walk past Drake to exit. Drake slowly set the revolver down and picked up the credit stick with the same hand. using it to gesture at the counter's small swing gate. "Take this and go. Consider it an apology for what's about to happen." The bartender gingerly took the credit stick, before scurrying out from behind the bar and through the door. Drake took his time to lower his hood and sip his whiskey, keeping an eye on the surprised and frightened mercenaries. He stood and slowly strolled to the door. In one smooth movement, he bolted the door closed with the hardy frame locks, before retaking his seat and facing the indecisive mercenaries. Dark circles had formed beneath his eyes, making him look more gaunt than usual. He slowly sipped his whiskey, staring the mercenaries down as he reached beneath his cloak and drew his sword, planting it tipped down in the wooden floorboards at his side. Setting his glass to the side, he folded his hands together and leaned forward. "You all are going to be good little boys and tell me exactly what I want to know. Or else." One of the ones that had been napping until recently looked at him with incredulity. "Or else what?" Drake chuckled softly, a humorless noise, as he leaned back against the bar and picked up his drink, cloak spreading open to reveal he was wearing no armor and carried no more weapons. "Or else I'm going to have to beat the answers out of you. Your choice." The sound of Drake's glass tapping against the counter was deafening in the silence that fell over the bar.